Have you ever noticed that the moment you stop chasing, people suddenly start coming back? It's almost like a universal law. The harder you try to hold on, the more they slip away. But the moment you let go, they return. But why? Is it fate? Coincidence? Some unexplainable cosmic force? No, it's none of those things. This isn't about luck or destiny. It's about a powerful shift in the way you carry yourself. It's about an approach deeply rooted in Stoicism, an ancient philosophy that teaches us to control our emotions, embrace self-sufficiency, and live with unwavering confidence. It's about cultivating an energy that attracts rather than repels. But here's where most people go wrong. They think the answer lies in manipulation, playing hard to get, using mind games, or pretending they don't care. But that's not what keeps people coming back. The real secret? It's becoming someone so internally powerful that your presence is irresistible. Most people unknowingly give away their power in relationships. They become needy, overly reactive, and dependent on external validation. They chase, thinking that persistence will bring someone closer, but in reality, it pushes them away. The harder you try to control something outside of yourself, the more unstable you become on the inside. But what if you could reverse that dynamic? What if, instead of chasing, you could become the kind of person people naturally gravitate toward? What if, by making just a few powerful shifts in your mindset, you could create a magnetic presence that draws people back to you effortlessly? This is exactly what you're about to learn. By the end of this article, you'll understand the core Stoic principles that make people respect, admire, and desire your presence, without you ever having to chase them again. These aren't just surface-level tricks. They're deep transformational shifts that will change how you approach every relationship in your life. And the best part, these shifts not only bring people back, they also make you stronger, more confident, and completely at peace, regardless of who stays or leaves. Let's begin. 1. Be unshakable in your peace. One of the most magnetic qualities a person can develop is an unshakable sense of inner peace. This isn't just about appearing calm on the surface. It's about truly embodying a state of mind where external circumstances no longer have control over your emotions. Most people live reactively. They allow their happiness to depend on how others treat them, on whether or not someone chooses them, on how much attention they receive. When things don't go their way, they panic, overthink, and act out of desperation. They don't realize that this very instability is what drives people away. People don't want to be around someone who is emotionally unpredictable, constantly seeking reassurance, or easily thrown off balance by minor setbacks. They gravitate toward those who can handle uncertainty with poise. Think about the last time you were around someone who was truly calm, no matter what was happening around them. Didn't their energy make you feel at ease? Didn't you respect their ability to remain composed in situations where others would have lost control? That's because emotional stability is rare. It signals strength. It communicates that a person is whole within themselves, that they don't need validation from others to feel secure. This is exactly why people return to those who master their inner world, because that kind of presence is irreplaceable. When you become the person who isn't easily rattled, who doesn't beg for attention, who remains grounded regardless of external circumstances, you become someone others naturally want to be around. Imagine this: someone walks away from your life. Maybe they lose interest, maybe they start pulling away, maybe they simply stop prioritizing you. What do most people do in this situation? They chase. They send emotional messages. They try to remind the other person of their worth. They go out of their way to prove they are still valuable. But what happens when you do this? You reinforce the idea that you are dependent on their presence to feel secure. You show that your emotions are dictated by their actions. You make it clear that they have power over you, and the more power they feel they have, the less they respect you. Now, Picture the alternative. The same person pulls away, but instead of chasing, you remain composed. You don't react emotionally. You don't try to convince them to stay. You continue living your life as if their absence does not disrupt your sense of self. What message does this send? That your worth was never tied to their presence, that you are solid within yourself whether they are there or not, that they do not hold the power to dictate your emotional state. This shift in energy is profound because suddenly, instead of you being the one seeking them out, they begin to question why you aren't reacting. They start to wonder if they misjudged your value. They become aware of the space you once filled in their life. And that space starts to feel empty. People don't miss those who constantly seek their attention. They miss those who provide something valuable and then withdraw that value without resistance. They miss the ones who were confident enough to walk away. They miss the ones who were strong enough to remain unshaken. This is why emotional stability is so powerful. It turns the tables. Instead of you being the one trying to prove your worth, others start recognizing it on their own. Instead of you needing them, they start feeling the need to be around you. There is a reason why in Stoic relationships, emotional self-sufficiency is emphasized above all else. When you train yourself to detach from external validation, you become truly independent. This doesn't mean suppressing your emotions or pretending not to care. It means developing the ability to experience emotions without letting them control you. When someone treats you with indifference, you don't internalize it. When someone leaves, you don't see it as a reflection of your worth. When someone withdraws, you don't panic and try to fix things. You accept reality as it is and move forward with the same sense of inner peace you had before. Most people struggle with this because they believe their emotions are beyond their control. They think that if they feel hurt, if they feel rejected, if they feel abandoned, then they must act on those emotions. But Stoicism teaches the opposite. It teaches that while you may not control the actions of others, you always control how you respond. It teaches that your emotions do not have to dictate your behavior, that no matter what happens externally, you can choose to remain stable, composed, and in control. This is the real reason why people return to those who embody inner peace, because they don't find that kind of energy everywhere. They don't find many people who are genuinely content within themselves. They don't often meet someone who doesn't crumble under pressure, who doesn't beg for attention, who doesn't let external circumstances determine their mood. When they do meet someone like that, it leaves an impression. It lingers in their mind. It makes them think. And then something interesting happens. They start feeling drawn to you again. Not because you did anything to force it, not because you manipulated them into missing you, but because your energy is something they can't find elsewhere. They start craving the presence of someone who is so self-assured, so emotionally stable, so independent that they never feel like they are being relied upon for validation. This doesn't just apply to romantic relationships. It applies to friendships, family dynamics, professional connections, any situation where human attraction is at play. People want to be around those who make them feel safe, who exude confidence, who don't need to prove anything. The moment you stop trying to get someone's attention, the moment you stop reacting to their absence, the moment you embody the kind of peace that is independent of external circumstances, you shift the entire dynamic. The beauty of this approach is that it benefits you regardless of whether or not someone returns. If they come back, it's not because you forced it, it's because they recognized your value on their own. If they don't, you still win, because you have cultivated an inner strength that no external loss can shake. You no longer fear being alone because you are whole within yourself. You no longer need validation because you have already validated your own worth. This is the essence of Stoicism. It is the power of being so at peace with yourself that you become untouchable. It is the ability to face loss, rejection, or uncertainty without losing yourself in the process. It is the quiet, unbreakable strength that makes people return, not because you asked them to, but because they realized, too late, that they had walked away from something truly rare. In the end, the greatest power you can have is not the ability to make someone stay. It is the ability to remain unshaken, no matter who comes or goes. And when you master this, you don't just become someone they miss, you become someone they regret losing. 2. Master emotional detachment. One of the biggest reasons people lose control in relationships is emotional attachment. They tie their self-worth to how others treat them. They feel validated when someone gives them attention and feel unworthy when that attention is taken away. This dependency creates anxiety, desperation, and a constant fear of loss. And what does desperation do? It repels. It makes you act in ways that push people further away, even when you believe you're trying to bring them closer. People can sense when someone is emotionally dependent on them, and rather than making them feel more connected, it often makes them withdraw. Emotional detachment, on the other hand, is one of the most powerful mindsets you can cultivate. It doesn't mean you stop feeling emotions or that you become cold and distant. It means you recognize that your emotions are yours to control, that no one else should have the power to dictate your inner state, that you can love someone without needing them, that you can appreciate someone's presence without fearing their absence. Think about the last time you were overly attached to someone's attention. How did it make you feel? Were you anxious every time they took longer to reply? Did you overanalyze their words, searching for hidden meanings? Did you feel uneasy if they didn't prioritize you the way you prioritized them? That state of emotional dependency keeps you stuck in a cycle of overthinking and insecurity. It makes you feel like you have no control over your emotions because you've handed that control over to someone else. But what happens when you detach? Suddenly, their actions don't determine your mood. If they text you back, great. If they don't, you remain the same. If they stay, you appreciate them. If they leave, you continue living your life. This kind of emotional strength is rare. And because it's rare, it's attractive. People don't expect it. They expect emotional reactions. They expect you to seek validation. When you don't, it forces them to reevaluate how they see you. Emotional detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop needing. When you no longer need constant reassurance, you become free. Free from the anxiety of wondering if someone still likes you. Free from the fear of losing them. Free from acting out of desperation instead of confidence. And this freedom is what makes you powerful. People return to those who make them feel something unique. When you detach, you create space. Space that makes them wonder why you're different. Space that makes them question if they misjudged your value. Space that allows them to miss you without you having to force it. This is why detachment is a magnet. It shifts the energy in your favor. Instead of being the one constantly seeking their approval, you become the one they seek out. Many people confuse emotional detachment with indifference, but they are not the same. Indifference means you don't care. Detachment means you care, but you are not dependent. You can love deeply while still maintaining your sense of self. You can be present in a relationship while knowing you would still be complete without it. You can enjoy someone's company without making them responsible for your happiness. This mindset changes everything. It removes the pressure from relationships. It allows you to operate from a place of calm rather than fear. It gives you the ability to walk away from anything that doesn't align with your self-respect. And ironically, this is exactly what makes people more drawn to you. Most people are afraid to detach because they believe it means they will lose the connection. They fear that if they don't show how much they care, the other person will leave. But this belief is flawed. Clinging to someone doesn't make them stay, it makes them feel suffocated. Detaching doesn't make them leave, It gives them space to appreciate your presence. Think of it like a flame. If you smother a fire with too much oxygen, it dies. But if you allow just the right amount of space, it burns brighter. This is how attraction works. Too much attachment creates pressure, and pressure pushes people away. But detachment creates mystery, curiosity, and a sense of value. How do you start practicing emotional detachment? First, observe your emotions without immediately reacting to them. When you feel anxious about someone's attention, instead of acting impulsively, take a step back. Ask yourself, am I making this about them, or am I making this about my own fears? Second, stop over-investing in people who don't match your energy. If you are always the one initiating, the one giving more, the one waiting for their attention, shift your focus. Give only as much as they give. Match energy, don't force it. Third, develop your own sense of fulfillment. The more you rely on external validation, the weaker you become. Build a life so fulfilling that no single person's presence or absence can shake you. The more you embody emotional detachment, the more you will notice a change in how people treat you. Those who once took you for granted will start to see you differently. Those who thought they could ignore you will start to notice your absence. Those who expected you to chase will begin wondering why you're not. And in that moment, they will realize that your value was never dependent on them. It was something you carried all along. Now, if you're still here, that means you understand the power of emotional detachment. It means you're ready to shift your mindset from one of seeking approval to one of quiet confidence. If you agree that emotional detachment is the key to attraction, like this video and comment number 1 below. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe because we are just getting started. The next step, shifting your focus from people to purpose. If you want to know why purpose makes you even more magnetic, keep watching. This is where everything changes. 3. Focus on your purpose, not on people. One of the biggest mistakes people make in relationships is centering their entire existence around another person. They become consumed by the relationship, constantly thinking about how to keep the other person interested, how to be more attractive in their eyes, how to make them stay. They revolve their time, energy, and emotions around someone else, often at the cost of their own personal growth. And what happens when you do this? You lose yourself. You stop being the person they were originally drawn to. You shift from being independent and intriguing to becoming someone whose happiness depends entirely on another's approval. There is nothing more unattractive than someone who lacks direction. When you place another person at the center of your universe, you send a message. I have nothing else that fulfills me. My happiness, my confidence, my self-worth, all of it depends on you. And that level of attachment, rather than creating closeness, suffocates the relationship. It drains the excitement, the mystery, the dynamic of two separate people choosing each other freely. Instead, it turns the relationship into a place of obligation rather than attraction. No one wants to feel like they are someone else's entire world. It creates pressure. It makes them feel responsible for your happiness, and over time, it pushes them away. But what happens when you shift your focus? When you stop making them the center of your life and instead place that energy into your purpose, everything changes. Suddenly, your presence carries weight. You are no longer someone waiting to be chosen. You are someone actively building, growing, achieving. You no longer sit around waiting for attention. You are too busy pursuing something greater than any one person's validation. And this is when people start to notice. Because a person who is deeply invested in their own life is magnetic. They exude confidence without even trying. They radiate a sense of direction that is undeniably attractive. Think about it. Who are you naturally drawn to? Is it the person who has no goals, no ambitions, who spends their days obsessing over someone else's affection? Or is it the person who moves with purpose, the one who is fully engaged in their work, their passions, their growth? People who have purpose don't need to beg for attention. They don't have to convince anyone to stay. Their energy speaks for itself. They become valuable not because they demand it, but because they embody it. Purpose creates an internal shift. When you have a mission, a goal, a deeper calling beyond relationships, you develop a different kind of confidence, one that doesn't rely on external validation. You stop worrying about whether someone is interested in you because you are already deeply interested in your own journey. You stop over-analyzing texts, stop waiting for someone to choose you, stop feeling empty when someone leaves, because your life is already full. And this fullness, this sense of being complete within yourself, is what draws people toward you without effort. Most people live in constant pursuit of connection, but they neglect the one thing that actually makes them attractive, being engaged in something bigger than themselves. This is what makes celebrities, athletes, entrepreneurs, and artists so desirable, not just their looks, but their drive, their passion, their commitment to something beyond romance. When you have a purpose, you don't need to manipulate anyone into coming back. You don't need to play games, act aloof, or try to create artificial distance. Your life naturally creates that distance. Your ambition naturally makes you unavailable at times. Your dedication to something greater than fleeting relationships makes people see you in a different light. But what if you don't know what your purpose is? What if you feel lost, like you don't have anything that excites you beyond relationships? That's where you start. Instead of obsessing over someone's attention, channel that energy into self-discovery. Try new things, learn new skills, read, travel, create, build. Find something that challenges you, something that excites you, something that gives you a sense of meaning outside of another person's approval. Purpose doesn't have to be something grand. It can be as simple as mastering a skill, excelling in your career, building a business, improving your health, or creating something valuable. The key is to have something that is yours, something that no one can take away. When you become a person of purpose, your entire aura shifts. You no longer come across as needy or desperate because you're too busy to be. You stop seeking external validation because you are already validated by your own accomplishments. You become someone people want to be around, not someone they feel pressured to entertain. And the irony, the moment you stop seeking their attention, the moment you stop making them your priority, the moment you fully invest in your own growth, that's when they start paying attention. Because now you are someone of value, someone who doesn't need their approval to feel worthy, someone they can respect. If you want proof, look back at your own experiences. Have you ever noticed that the moment you stop caring, stop chasing, stop overthinking, that's when people suddenly show interest? That's not a coincidence. That's the power of detachment combined with purpose. The truth is, people don't value what is easily available. They don't appreciate what is handed to them without effort. They admire and respect what is scarce, what is earned, what is not easily won. And when you become a person who is genuinely busy building something meaningful, you naturally create scarcity. You are no longer always available. You are no longer desperate for attention. You have something that demands your focus, something that makes you unavailable at times, something that forces people to work for your time. And that is attractive. So, ask yourself, am I making someone else the center of my world? Am I giving them more importance than I give my own growth? What would happen if I redirected that energy into my own mission? The moment you stop prioritizing them over yourself, they will start to notice. They will start wondering why they aren't your main focus anymore. They will start feeling the absence of the energy you once poured into them. And in that space, in that shift, they will start realizing that you were never just an option. They simply failed to see your value before. This is not manipulation. This is not a game. This is about becoming the kind of person who is naturally respected, admired, and sought after. When you build a life so fulfilling that no one's absence can shake you, you stop fearing loss. And when you stop fearing loss, you gain a power that no one can take away. You become someone people want to return to, not because you begged, but because your life itself is something worth being part of. 4. Use the power of silence. Silence is one of the most underrated yet powerful tools in any relationship. Most people believe that to keep someone's attention, they need to constantly communicate, remind the other person of their presence, and ensure they are not forgotten. They fear that if they stay silent, they will be replaced, ignored, or left behind. But this belief is exactly why they struggle to maintain attraction. The truth is, people do not value what is always available. They value what they have to work for, what they have to wonder about, what they feel they could lose. And silence, when used correctly, creates this dynamic effortlessly. Most people react impulsively when they sense someone pulling away. They over-communicate. They send emotional messages, trying to clarify where they stand. They seek reassurance, hoping the other person will confirm that they still care. But what does this actually do? It eliminates the space needed for the other person to realize your value on their own. It removes the natural sense of curiosity that makes attraction grow. It tells them, consciously or subconsciously, that you are always there, waiting, available, predictable, and nothing kills attraction faster than predictability. Silence, on the other hand, shifts the entire power dynamic. When someone distances themselves from you, and instead of reacting emotionally, you remain still, composed, and unbothered, it forces them to think. It forces them to wonder why you haven't reached out, why you're not chasing, why you're not reacting the way they expected. It creates a void, one that their mind will naturally try to fill. And in that space of silence, they start to reflect. They start to notice your absence. They start to feel the weight of what they once had, but may have taken for granted. Think about the last time someone you were used to hearing from suddenly went quiet. Didn't you start to wonder what they were doing? Didn't their silence make you curious? Didn't it make you question whether you had lost their attention? This is the power of silence in action. When you stop over-explaining, stop seeking validation, stop forcing communication, you allow mystery to work in your favor. You create a psychological pull that no amount of words could ever achieve. But silence isn't just about absence, it's about presence in a different way. It's about demonstrating confidence through restraint. It's about showing that you are at peace, whether someone chooses to be in your life or not. It's about proving without words that you do not need to chase anyone because your worth is already established. And when you embody this kind of emotional control, you instantly become more desirable. People start respecting you more. They start second-guessing their choices. They start realizing that your presence was not something to take lightly. The key to making silence work for you is trusting the process. Many people fail at this because they panic midway. They hold back for a day or two, but then give in to their emotions and reach out anyway. But real power in silence comes from consistency. It comes from truly letting go of the need for immediate results. It comes from understanding that space creates clarity, both for you and for them. If someone truly values you, silence will not push them away. It will bring them closer because they will feel the contrast between your presence and your absence. Silence also helps you filter out the wrong people. If someone does not care enough to notice your absence, then what exactly are you chasing? If they do not feel the need to reach out, why are you trying to force a connection? True relationships, whether romantic or otherwise, are built on mutual effort. And silence is one of the best ways to see who is genuinely willing to meet you halfway and who was only there out of convenience. This approach is not about playing games. It's not about manipulating someone into missing you. It's about respecting yourself enough to not overextend for people who are not showing up for you. It's about allowing others to realize your value without constant reminders. It's about training yourself to be comfortable with uncertainty, knowing that you do not need to force anyone to stay in your life. When you truly adopt this mindset, something amazing happens. People start to see you differently. They start to recognize your worth, not because you convince them, but because they experienced what life is like without your presence. And that realization is far more powerful than any words you could ever say. If you're still here, that means you understand how powerful silence can be. You see why speaking less and doing more creates a deeper impact. And if you agree that silence is a game changer in relationships, like this video and comment number 1 below. And don't forget to subscribe, because in the next section, we'll talk about one of the most transformative shifts you can make, self-improvement. If you want to know why constantly evolving makes you impossible to ignore, keep watching. This is where real change happens. 5. Cultivate continuous self-improvement. Nothing makes a person more magnetic than the constant pursuit of growth. People are naturally drawn to those who are evolving, who are pushing themselves beyond their limits, who are actively working toward becoming better versions of themselves. Yet most people make the mistake of believing that self-improvement is something you do to impress others. They think if they become more attractive, more successful, or more skilled, then they will finally be worthy of attention, love, or validation. But this is the wrong mindset. True self-improvement isn't about proving yourself to anyone else. It's about proving to yourself that you are capable of becoming someone you respect. And when you operate from that place, the attraction follows naturally. Think about the people you admire most. Are they the ones who are stagnant, who never challenge themselves, who remain the same year after year? Or are they the ones who are constantly learning, constantly growing, constantly striving for something greater? The people who hold power in any room, who command respect without needing to demand it, are those who have mastered the art of evolution. They have built themselves into individuals of value, not for the sake of impressing others, but because they refuse to settle for mediocrity. And this is what makes them stand out. This is what makes them unforgettable. When you dedicate yourself to self-improvement, everything about you changes. Your energy, your confidence, your presence. You no longer feel the need to chase people because you are too busy building something meaningful. You don't have time to overthink someone's absence because you are already focused on the next level of your own journey. And ironically, this is exactly when people start paying attention. They start noticing your transformation. They start seeing the difference in how you carry yourself. They begin to wonder why they didn't appreciate you sooner. This is the quiet power of growth. It speaks louder than words. It makes an undeniable statement. It shifts the entire dynamic in your favor. But most people don't realize this because they are too focused on short-term validation. They want immediate results. They want to know that if they start improving themselves today, someone will come back tomorrow. But true self-improvement doesn't work like that. It's not a quick fix, it's a lifelong commitment, and that's exactly why it's so powerful, because the moment you stop improving for the sake of external validation and start improving because you refuse to stay the same, you tap into something rare, something that very few people truly understand. One of the biggest misconceptions about self-improvement is that it's about changing yourself so that others will like you. But Stoicism teaches the opposite. It teaches that the only person you should compete with is the person you were yesterday. It teaches that external validation is fleeting, but personal mastery lasts forever. When you adopt this mindset, your entire approach to relationships changes. You stop viewing people's attention as a prize. You stop seeing rejection as a failure. Instead, you begin to measure success by how much you have grown, how much you have learned, how much you have elevated your own standards. And when you do this, something powerful happens. People who once overlooked you start noticing you, not because you forced them to, but because your transformation makes it impossible for them to ignore. The reason self-improvement works is simple. People are naturally attracted to value. When you focus on bettering yourself, whether it's through developing new skills, improving your health, refining your mindset, or expanding your knowledge, you increase your value. And people notice value. They may not always acknowledge it right away, but over time, your growth speaks for itself. The best part, you no longer need to convince anyone of your worth. Your presence alone does that for you. Many people struggle with self-improvement because they feel overwhelmed. They think they need to change everything overnight to become a completely different person in a matter of weeks. But the key to real growth isn't drastic changes, it's consistent daily progress. Ask yourself, what is one thing I can do today that will make me better than I was yesterday? That's all it takes. Small daily improvements compound over time and create massive transformation. Another common mistake people make is thinking that self-improvement is just about external success, having a great career, making more money, looking better. But true self-improvement is holistic. It's about becoming stronger mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. It's about developing resilience, learning discipline, mastering emotional control. It's about becoming the kind of person who can handle life's uncertainties with grace and confidence, because that is what makes you truly powerful. And that is what draws people back to you. When you are constantly improving, you send a message to the world. I am growing. I am evolving. I am becoming someone greater every single day. And this energy is contagious. People are drawn to it. They want to be around it. They want to understand how you do it. And those who may have walked away, they start to wonder if they made a mistake. They start seeing you in a new light. Not because you changed for them, but because you changed for yourself. And that is what makes it so impactful. If you've ever felt like you weren't good enough, like you had to prove your worth to someone, like you had to chase them just to be seen, then this is your wake-up call. Stop focusing on them. Stop trying to get their attention. Redirect that energy into your own growth, your own goals, your own evolution. Because the truth is, when you become the best version of yourself, the right people will notice, and those who walked away, they'll either return or realize too late that they lost someone truly valuable. If this message resonated with you, take a second to like this video and comment number 1 below. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, because the next section is going to take this transformation even further. We'll be talking about the one trait that makes you truly untouchable in relationships. If you want to become someone who can't be shaken by anyone's actions, who commands respect effortlessly, who moves through life with an unstoppable sense of calm, keep watching, because this is where everything changes. 6. Set boundaries and stand by them. One of the biggest reasons people lose respect in relationships is because they fail to set boundaries. Or worse, they set boundaries but don't enforce them. They tolerate behavior that makes them uncomfortable. They allow others to overstep their limits, and they compromise their own well-being just to keep someone around. And the result? They become easily replaceable. When you don't stand firm on your boundaries, people subconsciously learn that they can treat you however they want without consequences. They take your kindness for weakness. They assume that no matter what they do, you'll always be there, always available, always willing to tolerate their inconsistency. And this kills attraction faster than anything else. The truth is, boundaries are not about controlling other people. They're about controlling yourself. They're about defining what you will and will not accept, what you will and will not tolerate, what you are willing to walk away from. When you have strong boundaries, you communicate self-respect without having to say a word. You show that your time, your energy, and your presence are valuable. You make it clear that you are not someone who will tolerate half-hearted effort, broken promises, or disrespect. And this, ironically, is what makes people respect you more. Most people fear setting boundaries because they think it will push others away. They worry that if they say no, if they demand better treatment, if they refuse to accept less than they deserve, then the other person will leave. But what they fail to realize is that the people who leave because of your boundaries were never meant to stay. And the people who genuinely value you will respect you even more for having them. Boundaries filter out the wrong people and strengthen connections with the right ones. They create a natural divide between those who are only there for convenience and those who are truly invested in you. Ask yourself, have I ever let someone treat me in a way that made me feel small just because I was afraid of losing them? Have I ever ignored red flags, justified bad behavior, or given endless second chances because I didn't want to be alone? If the answer is yes, then it's time to change. Because the moment you start enforcing your boundaries, everything shifts. You stop attracting people who take advantage of you. You stop tolerating behavior that drains your energy. You stop making excuses for why someone isn't treating you the way you deserve. And in doing so, you become someone others respect, not someone they take for granted. People will test your boundaries, not always intentionally, but simply to see what they can get away with. And when they do, your reaction is what teaches them how to treat you. If someone disrespects your time and you ignore it, they learn that your time isn't valuable. If someone crosses a line and you let it slide, they learn that your standards are flexible. If someone mistreats you and you stay silent, they learn that there are no real consequences for their actions. But when you stand firm, when you walk away from situations that don't align with your self-worth, when you refuse to engage with people who disrespect your boundaries, you send a different message. You show that you're not afraid to lose someone if it means maintaining your self-respect. And that is powerful. The people who return after you enforce boundaries don't just come back casually. They come back with a different level of respect. They come back realizing that you are not someone they can mistreat and still keep in their life. They come back understanding that if they want access to you, they have to step up. And those who don't return, they were never meant to be part of your journey in the first place. Their absence is not a loss, it's a gain. Because every time you enforce your boundaries, you make space for people who truly value and respect you. One of the most important aspects of boundary setting is consistency. Many people set boundaries, but when faced with pressure, they backtrack. They say, I won't tolerate this. But when the person pushes back, they make an exception. And this is where they lose power. Boundaries mean nothing if they are not upheld. The moment you break your own rules, you teach others that your words don't carry weight. And once that happens, it becomes harder to regain respect. This is why it's crucial to stay firm. No matter how much you like someone, no matter how much history you have, no matter how much you want to make things work, if they cannot respect your boundaries, they do not deserve a place in your life. The beauty of setting and enforcing boundaries is that it doesn't just impact your relationships, it transforms you. It builds your confidence, strengthens your self-worth, and eliminates the anxiety that comes from constantly trying to please others. It allows you to move through life with certainty, knowing that you are not at the mercy of anyone's approval. It gives you the freedom to walk away from anything that doesn't serve you, without hesitation, without guilt, without fear. People who lack boundaries live in a state of emotional chaos. They overextend themselves, they tolerate mistreatment, they lose their sense of identity, trying to keep others happy. But people who have strong boundaries, they move differently. They have a quiet confidence about them. They don't need to beg for respect. They command it effortlessly. They don't fear losing people. They trust that the right people will stay. And this shift in energy is what makes them truly magnetic. If you want to become someone who naturally attracts respect, who never has to question their worth, who is surrounded only by people who truly value them, then it's time to set boundaries and stand by them. And if you're ready to make that shift, like this video and comment number 1 below. And don't forget to subscribe, because in the next section, we're going to take things to an even higher level. We'll be diving into the ultimate mindset that makes you completely unshakable, no matter what happens in your relationships. If you want to become untouchable in your emotional strength, keep watching, because this is where everything changes. 7. Be unshakable in your peace. In a world where emotions often dictate actions, where people react impulsively to rejection, silence, and uncertainty, the person who remains unshaken stands out. Most people allow their peace to be disrupted by external events. If someone ignores them, they panic. If someone pulls away, they chase. If they don't receive the validation they were expecting, their confidence crumbles. They become trapped in a cycle of emotional instability, constantly searching for reassurance, constantly allowing others to dictate their mood, constantly handing over their power without realizing it. But what happens when you refuse to let external circumstances control your internal state? What happens when you develop an unshakable sense of peace, where no one's actions or opinions have the power to disrupt your emotional stability? Everything changes. People are naturally drawn to those who are calm under pressure, to those who don't react emotionally to every shift in a relationship, to those who carry themselves with quiet confidence and inner security. This is the essence of Stoicism. Learning to master your emotions rather than being mastered by them. When you become unshakable in your peace, you communicate a message that is more powerful than any words you could say. I do not need anyone to feel whole. I'm in control of my own emotions. My value is not determined by external validation, and this is what makes you magnetic. Think about the most respected people you know. Are they the ones who react emotionally to every little inconvenience? Or are they the ones who remain composed, no matter what is happening around them? True strength is not about suppressing emotions. It's about mastering them. It's about acknowledging how you feel, but choosing to respond rather than react. When you operate from this level of control, you become someone who is impossible to manipulate. You no longer get caught in petty drama. You don't beg for closure. You don't feel the need to explain yourself to people who don't deserve an explanation, and in doing so, you gain a presence that people respect. The reason most people fail to develop inner peace is because they are too focused on things they cannot control. They spend their time obsessing over what someone else is thinking, worrying about whether or not they will return, replaying conversations in their head, overanalyzing every little detail. But all of this is wasted energy, because the truth is you cannot control other people. You cannot control their choices, their actions, or how they feel. But you can control how you respond. You can control whether or not you allow their actions to disrupt your sense of calm. You can decide to detach from things that do not serve you, and this is where true power lies. Most people are reactive. They let emotions control them rather than the other way around. They make impulsive decisions, say things they later regret, act out of desperation, and sabotage themselves in the process. But when you develop true emotional discipline, when you learn to pause before responding, when you refuse to let external events dictate your internal state, you enter a completely different realm of attraction. You become someone who people admire because you do not crumble under pressure. You become someone people respect because you are not easily shaken. You become someone people want to be around because your presence is calming, stable, and rare. There is something incredibly powerful about being the person who does not react. When someone expects you to chase them and you don't, it forces them to reconsider. When someone tries to provoke you and you remain unaffected, it confuses them. When someone expects you to beg for their attention, and instead you carry on as if nothing happened, it makes them question their own actions. This is not about manipulation. It's about showing that your peace is not dependent on anyone else. And when people see that, they begin to realize they cannot control you. They begin to respect you, and in many cases, they begin to feel drawn back to you. The key to becoming unshakable in your peace is detachment, not from people, but from outcomes. The reason most people experience anxiety in relationships is because they are attached to a specific result. They need things to go a certain way in order to feel okay. They need someone to respond in a particular manner to feel secure. But when you detach from the outcome and instead focus on your own sense of self, you free yourself. You are no longer at the mercy of someone else's decisions. You are no longer waiting for external validation. You are no longer dependent on things outside of your control. And that is what makes you truly powerful. Ask yourself, what would happen if I stopped letting other people's actions control me? What if I decided that no matter who stays or leaves, I will still be at peace? What if I shifted my focus away from seeking validation and instead focused on building my own internal stability? When you start living this way, the energy around you shifts. People sense the difference, they feel the change, and suddenly those who once dismissed you start seeing you differently. Because now, you are not just another person seeking their approval, you are someone who does not need it. And here's the irony. The moment you reach this level of emotional mastery, the moment you stop needing others to validate you, that's when they start chasing you. Because your peace, your confidence, your ability to remain unshaken, it becomes something they want to be around. It becomes something they cannot find elsewhere. It makes them question why they ever let you go in the first place. And when that realization hits, they come back. Not because you manipulated them, not because you played games, but because you became someone they cannot ignore. If you've made it this far, then you already understand the power of emotional mastery. You see why being unshakable in your peace is the ultimate attraction. And if this message resonated with you, take a second to like this video and comment number 1 below. And don't forget to subscribe, because in the next section, we're going to bring everything together. We're going to dive into the final shift that makes you unforgettable. The moment where all these principles align to make you someone people always return to. If you're ready for that transformation, keep watching, because this is where everything comes full circle. You cannot control who stays or who leaves, but you can control who you become. And when you embody these principles, when you master emotional detachment, focus on your purpose, harness the power of silence, commit to self-improvement, enforce your boundaries, and cultivate unshakable inner peace, you no longer have to chase, beg, or convince anyone to be in your life. You become someone people want to return to, not because you manipulated them into missing you, but because your presence carries weight. You stop being just another option and instead become someone of undeniable value. The irony of attraction is that the less you seek it, the more naturally it comes to you. When you detach from needing others to validate your worth, you create space for them to recognize it on their own. When you shift your focus away from people and toward your own growth, you become someone they can't help but notice. And when you remain unshaken in your peace, you become irreplaceable. This is how you reclaim your power. This is how you reverse the dynamic. And this is why people always return to those who live by these principles. But the most important part, by the time they realize your value, you will no longer need them to. Because through this process, you don't just become more attractive to others, you become the strongest, most fulfilled version of yourself. If this message resonated with you, take a moment to like this video and comment number 1 below. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe, because this is just the beginning. Your transformation starts now.